All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today is Saturday, March 14th, 2026. You are now watching Permission to Exist. I am your host, Permission to Exist, also known as PTE. And welcome to the show. I'm so glad you guys like the music. Wanted to make it feel kind of 80s, give it a little 80s vibe, a little 80s theme. And because I can't use the songs that I want to use, I had to find something that sounded similar. So I'm glad that you guys really liked it. That makes me feel good because I worked really hard on that. So thank you. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports the channel in any meaningful way, be that Cash App, Patreon, super chatting, liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. I really do appreciate it, you guys, especially in these trying times that we're in. It's good to still be here and it's good to still have you guys. So thank you so much for your support. And shout out to the channel members. Haven't forgot about y'all. I just need to update this slide. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited about this show because I've wanted to do it for a long time. And it's finally here because I think it's going to make a really big point that I've been trying to make on the channel for a while. And we're going to make that point tonight. So welcome everyone. Hello to everybody in the chat. So tonight's topic, what did I rename this show? My goodness. Oh, I renamed it The Future We Were Sold. I didn't know what to call this show because there's so many different things I'm trying to say all at once. So I renamed it about 3 times before I settled on The Future We Were Sold, because we were sold a certain future. And the generation that I'm really focusing on tonight are the millennials. But I do think this can apply to like late Gen X and possibly early Gen Z, maybe. But I almost want to say Gen Z probably didn't experience this. So really, this show is dedicated to the millennials, of which I am one. I'm an 80s baby. And I really feel strongly about this because I was really bought in, okay? And I've talked about it before, but we'll talk about it some more tonight. But I was really bought into the optimism of this time frame. I really was. So we're going to break it down a little bit. Welcome to everyone in the chat. That video is still up. Chat says, what happened to the everyone in the sinking boat video? It's still up. Or maybe I hid it. I might have hidden it, but I'll look for it after the show, okay? Welcome. So I want to start the show by sharing a couple of tweets that I saw online. And I mentioned this the last time we did a live stream, but this would be a perfect example, right? I kind of threw the topic out there a couple months ago, and then I had just been thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, I start seeing it online. So it's a little spooky, but I don't think it's like, I don't necessarily think it's the phones and things spying on us. Because if they are, they're spying on my brain, because it's not something I said out loud, really. And it's not something like I wrote down anywhere, like in my phone or anything like that. So to see it pop up, I'm like, oh, maybe this is on other people's minds too. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. So let me share these with you because I really think they capture the spirit of what tonight's show is really about. All right. So this tweet was from March 1st of this year. It says, something that breaks my heart as a millennial is how effing optimistic and fun our teenage years and 20s were. Like we envisioned a totally different world from the one that we've got, and insanely divorced from what Gen Z are experiencing. It's hard to put in words how fantastic we thought life was going to be and how it seemed like we were making tangible social progress. We've had all that ripped away from us. And that really, really, we have some other tweets to look at, but I really wanted to start the show with that particular tweet because if you look at this thumbnail, you're basically looking at a snapshot of my childhood. This was my childhood. And this is what I saw. This is what I experienced. The people in the middle are from the music video, We Are the World. We Are the Children. We are the ones to make a better place. And then in that same time frame, you had the song Heal the World by Michael Jackson. Y'all remember that? So when you look at a picture like this, look at the diversity, look at the representation, look how everyone is hand in hand. Can you imagine something like this today in 2026? That would be a fun thought experiment. Who could we swap these people out with and make it make sense? What musicians, what celebrities, what influencers could we actually swap all these people out with and still have the picture make sense? You understand? I just feel like this could not happen today. I feel like this couldn't exist today because it would be too woke. And what's weird about that to me is the same people who would call something like this woke were alive during this time frame. I don't get it. It's very strange. Right, there aren't many. There are not many that we could swap out with that I can think of where it wouldn't be controversial or chat says it could not happen today. I think I agree. So understand as a child, I don't remember what year this came out, but I think I was like maybe 9 or 10 when We Are the World came out. Hold on, let me just look. That's what we have the internet for. When was We Are the World recorded? It came out in, oh my goodness. Oh, I was a baby. It came out in 1985. Really? No, that's not possible. Hold on. When was We Are the World music video released? Wow, it was 1985. Huh. I was a baby. I was a little baby. I was like 2 or 3. I think I had just turned 3. My goodness. Anyway, wow. Okay. Well, even more so, that kind of reinforces my point. The reason that's surprising to me is that I remember it. That's why it's surprising to me. That's why I'm like, I had to have been like 9 or 10. But if it came out in 85, I was a baby and I remember that. So then what that means then also is that that imprinted on me. It had to, because I was little. I was so small when We Are the World came out. So anyway, so this is what I saw growing up, and it's also what I lived. It's also what I experienced. My friends were very diverse. I had very close relationships with white people and white kids my age. Like it wasn't even a thing. It didn't even occur, I don't think, to either one of us that we were different races because we were so focused on whatever our little mission at hand was, be that going and crawling around, not crawling, but like hiking in this little like retention area, which looking back was probably very dangerous. We weren't supposed to be back there, but whatever. We went back there and we would be looking for frogs and little turtles. Oh, it was so much fun. And then like riding our bicycles, that was one of our favorite things to do. We would ride our bicycles all around the neighborhood. We would get chalk and draw the hopscotch on the ground. We would do hopscotch. What else did we used to do all the time? Oh, pools. We would go to the pool. That was like a normal thing. And then for my friends that had pools in their backyard, I would go to their house, go to the pool, and then their mom would like make us sandwiches and we would have sandwiches and carrot sticks. Like it was amazing. It was a beautiful time. Chat says it was a beautiful time. Like, and I say that and it hurts because those same people today are like violently opposed to like my very existence. Not me personally, but just like the concept of a black. You know, they're going to vote against it. They're going to, you know, select candidates that are openly hostile and racist and you know, ableist and things of that nature. Like they are now completely different people, and that's very concerning to me because again, the people who have turned today were part of this. They were part of We Are the World. They were there. Some of them were already adults. They were young adults. I think they were probably in their 20s and 30s. If we were kids, then they were in their 20s and 30s. They were there. You are there. Yes, chat says actually playing outside before the street lights came on. Yes, or in before the street lights came on. Exactly. Chat says my friends in the early 90s were diverse, but media pushed a hate whitey campaign, and that time was over. See, I don't think that's what happened, but we'll get there. I'm going to make my greater points, and then I'll come back to yours, because I don't think that's what happened. Because if that was the case, then it would have been like that already. Because never mind. Let me stay focused, and then I'll come back to your comment, okay? So this is what we saw. And clearly, since I was a little baby, this was imprinted on me. So this is what I expected. These were my expectations for society. It didn't seem far-fetched. Diversity didn't seem far-fetched at the time at all. Okay. So here, I'll go ahead and share this one, because it's interesting, because it's kind of counter to what the chat just said. So for this next tweet, it says, being a teenager in the late 90s would have made you think we were healing in the US and that we were working towards great race relations. Then boom, back to hating Black Americans for existing. So it's interesting, right? The dichotomy. I know most people, if you're just listening, you can't see the live chat, but there's a comment in the live chat that says the media push was to hate whitey. And then you have a tweet over here that says, boom, back to hating Black Americans for existing. So that shows you the divide right there. That shows you the great divide that is taking place right there. I'm going to focus less on this bottom part. We'll get there. It's this top part that I was more, this is the reason I chose this tweet. Was I a teenager in the late 90s? Oh, I was. Yeah, I was actually. Being a teenager in the late 90s would have made you think we were healing in the US and that we were working towards great race relations, and it would have. And now that I'm thinking back, yes, I was in high school in the late 90s. So again, same thing from childhood. My friends were very diverse. I was a cheerleader. So I was on the squad with Black girls and white girls, and we were all friends. We would go to the game, cheer, and then what used to be open after the game? We would either go to Applebee's or IHOP. I'm thinking it was IHOP. We would all go to IHOP, laughing. Cell phones, as they are today, didn't really exist like that. So there was no cameras on them. So we would do things like take pictures with regular cameras that had to be developed. So we'd be taking pictures, and then we'd go take our cameras and drop them off at a CVS or Walgreens or whoever was developing pictures, and go get them. Like, that was our fun. Like, we really enjoyed each other. We really enjoyed each other. Like, I could not have envisioned the world that we have today. I couldn't have envisioned it, because we were so united at the time. And so it's like, someone who's in their 20s would consider me old in my 40s, right? So they would say, oh, you old people are always talking about the past and reminiscing on how things used to be. But one of the main points I'm trying to drive home in tonight's show is that things were actually different. They were actually different. And I think it's largely because of this. It's largely because there appeared to be a very intentional push to make us that way. If ever there was a time that propaganda was actually a good thing, this might have been the one and only time in history where propaganda was a good thing. It's almost like the adults in charge at the time decided, we are going to make these kids good people. Damn it. If it's the last thing we do, if it's the last thing that we do, we are going to make them good people. We are going to make them care about the earth. We are going to make them care about reading. We are going to make them care about being kind to one another and being good citizens. They used to give out good citizenship awards. I don't know if they still do. I imagine some of them still do. Some schools still do. But you used to get graded on citizenship. It was part of your report card. I remember it clearly. It was part of your report card, good citizenship. So I don't know if that's still a thing, but I distinctly remember it though. And I got good marks on my citizenship. Thank you. Um, it seemed to have been a very intentional push. Be nice to each other, work together, care about the planet, stand up for other people, like stand up for the vulnerable. Read your freaking books. Read, help your neighbor. Like, does anyone remember the Pizza Hut Book It program? Oh my God. How exciting and how fun. So, if I remember how it used to operate, basically, I think you had to read like a certain number of books and then you put them on a list, I think, and then you would take that list to Pizza Hut and they would give you a personal pan pizza and a button for free. Oh, you remember good citizenship on your report card? I remember it too, because I think I was the most proud of that when I used to hand over my report card to my parents and they would review it. And I would always get good marks in my citizenship because I was a good citizen. Okay. Um, Pizza Hut would give you a little personal pan pizza for free and a button. And it was a big button too. It wasn't little. It was a big button and I just loved it. And my mom would take me quite faithfully. Like I would finish reading and fill out my little list, and we would go up to the Pizza Hut and I would turn it over and they would give me my pizza and my button. And I was a very, very, very happy child. And, and as chat says, we went from reading Rainbow to nobody knows how to read. It's stunning, y'all. Like it's shocking to me. And I believe and I imagine that it's probably shocking to a lot of millennials because we all grew up the same way. Understand that the internet wasn't what it was. And for the first part of our lives, the internet didn't exist at all. So when I was born, what was out? Telephones, obviously. But I think they were all corded when I was born. Then we went to portable, were they called portable? Yeah, the portable phone. So I think it had to charge. I don't remember, but it would sit on the receiver and charge. And then you could walk around the house with the portable phone without a cord attached. And that was major. That was huge. I know some of us have memories of our mothers walking around on the portable phone, talking to their besties and like doing little stuff around the house, right? Um, then, and then, oh yeah, of course we had radio. Sounds like I'm like 100 years old. Um, I mean, shit, almost, I guess. We're about halfway there almost. Anyway, of course we had radio. The big thing with us at the time, when we were younger was recording songs off the radio onto a cassette tape. So that was the original burn CD. We would sit and wait and wait and wait for our favorite song to come on. And then as soon as it came on, you had to hit record and you could record your songs off the radio and then play them back whenever you wanted to. Oh man. Oh, and we had VCRs. Did we have VCRs when I was born? I don't remember. But yeah. So we went from that. And then in schools, like we didn't have internet and stuff. So we all had the same textbooks. We were all basically learning the same thing. We had the same teachers for the most part. We were taking the same tests. So what I'm trying to figure out is what went wrong. What went wrong between then and now? Something happened, y'all. Oh yeah, video cameras. We have video cameras. And then, yep, then we graduated to CDs. And then I'll never forget when my dad brought home my first computer, and it didn't do much, but I played Oregon Trail on it. And I remember learning how to change the color of the screen from like red to blue to black to white. Oh, and I had an Atari. Do y'all remember Ataris? I had an Atari. Yes, chat says clear Memorex tapes, recording your own playlist. And then Walkmans, yep. Maxwell or Maxell tapes, boom boxes, yes, honey. Like we were enjoying ourselves, and I can't help but wonder if maybe that's why, because we were more in the moment, I guess. We couldn't open up a computer or our phone and see what somebody on the other side of the world was doing. So, kind of going back to what we were talking about in the last live stream, that's probably why I was so geopolitically ignorant for so long, because for the longest time, the only information we had was what was coming through the TV, movies, magazines, and books, and that's it. And like encyclopedias, for example. So if I wanted to learn about another country, I either had to go to the encyclopedia and look it up, or go to the library and find like a couple of books on that country and like read up on it. But understand what that means. What that means is you can't necessarily challenge that information in real time like we can now. Back then, it just was what it was. Like, if that's what the book says, if that's what's going to get me my A. So if I go check out 3 books from the library, read them, and do my book report on this other country, and I get an A as a result, then I feel informed. You understand? I feel educated. I got my A. I passed. So I guess I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm digressing. The point I was trying to make was I think that because we weren't so connected, we were more in the moment, and maybe that made it more beautiful. I don't know. Or perhaps it made it to where people couldn't get indoctrinated with the most psychotic ideas you've ever heard in life because they didn't have a 24/7 algorithm feeding it to them. Because one thing I've learned is the human mind is not as, um, what am I trying to say? The human mind can be very easily influenced. And if the human mind is not fortified, it will be taken, is basically what I'm trying to say. So I'll work on that thought and I'll build it out a little bit. Oh, chat says Pac-Man. Yep. I remember Pac-Man. Mm-hmm. So I'm an 80s baby. Chat says, so when were you born? It says I talk as if I'm Gen X, Y, and Z. What? Okay. Okay. I'm a millennial, darling. I'm an 80s baby. Okay. So it was a different time. And I actually do remember loosely the topic of racism and, excuse me, coming up and things like that. And I remember at the time distinctly, it was so frowned upon. It was like, you are the biggest loser if you're a racist. Like when we learned about slavery and things like that in school, it was just kind of like they were appalled. And I think they were genuinely appalled at the time. I do. And it was just like, can't believe that ever happened. How awful, how embarrassing. Let's never go back. That was kind of the idea. Let's never go back to that time frame ever. Like we are going to move forward and we're going to be better. And that's what it felt like growing up felt like to me. Like Nickelodeon used to have this thing called The Big Help. And it's so funny looking back because that would be considered the wokest liberal propaganda of all time now. Liberal. I don't know if y'all seen that meme, that Alex Jones meme. Liberal, liberal, liberal. All this whole entire graphic that you're looking at, liberal. Okay. But the big help, what that was is Nickelodeon would do like this 3 or 4 day marathon, right? And they had a 1-800 number, or they had a couple of 1-800 numbers. And you would call in and pledge a certain number of volunteer hours. Liberal. And so like I would call and and it's so funny. Like I just want to protect little me so bad because I was so innocent. I really was, because I would be like, well, I can't pledge 10 hours because that's a lot of hours, but I can pledge 5. So I would call in and make my little 5-hour pledge. And then I would be so disappointed in myself if I only did like 1 hour of volunteer work. I'd be like, I pledged 5, but I only did 1 hour. Like, I literally held myself accountable. What? Wow. Like, here I am, this small child, holding myself accountable because I made a promise. I pledged 5 hours of volunteer work, and I was only able to pull off 1 hour. And I was disappointed in myself. Can you imagine if children were like that today? Chat says, I loved the big help. It helped get a lot of people into volunteering and community service. And that was the whole point. That was the whole point, right? Like, it is just shocking to me what we have become as a society. We literally came from pledge volunteer hours and have kids feeling bad if they don't actually live up to their volunteer hours, to read 10 books and we'll give you a free personal pan pizza, and follow through on it too, though. Because I feel like if a company did that today, they would run the program for like 6 weeks. And then, like, towards the end, the kids would show up and they were like, sorry, we're out of pizza. Like, I feel like that. And there would be no follow up either, like just breaking the hearts of kids everywhere. I feel like that's how it would be. And it's like, how could you be that way when you're the generation that got your free pizza and buttons from Pizza Hut? How have you turned into this? Who are you? Like, who are you for real? Like, who have you become? Uh, Chat says most kids back then were relatively innocent. Not so anymore, right? Chat says Adopt a Mile was so much fun. I did that. I remember Adopt a Mile. What was the one where you planted trees? Wasn't there something where, like, you planted trees or something? Was it National Arbor Day? I feel like there was something around planting trees. Chat says share, clean, fix, visit, care, give, do. Yep. Wow. This is bringing back memories. Core memories are getting unlocked. Um, so it's like, I feel like that's what would happen. First of all, they wouldn't do it because it would be considered woke and liberal to encourage children to read and then reward them for reading, right? Um, so that would be considered woke and liberal. Encouraging kids to call in and pledge volunteer hours would be considered woke and liberal. Oh man, helping others used to be such a core value that they instilled in us. In so many different ways, they tried to do it. And I feel like it worked for a little while. It worked for a time, which is why I feel like millennials are so jaded. Not all millennials, but I feel like a lot of millennials feel jaded because this is kind of what we mean when we say we did everything that we were told to do, and then they moved the goalpost. They changed the rules on us, and now they're not playing fair. When all that you taught us when we were young was to play fair. You taught us that. You drilled it into our heads in all kinds of different ways. It was Arbor Day. Okay. Um, so, we were brought up quite differently. And I think it made a lot of us not necessarily naive, but I think it made us optimistic. And unfortunately, as we became young adults, it kind of turned us into people who were a little bit more prone to get taken advantage of because we believed in the inherent good nature of others, because we grew up in the dare generation where they literally purposely, like, propagandize us to not do drugs. Like, it was a whole thing. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it was an anti-drug program. We had t-shirts and everything. We had t-shirts, and now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like, didn't we have like assemblies and stuff? Didn't they, like, pull us out of class and like call us down to the auditorium and have like anti-drug rallies? Or am I imagining that? I feel like it was a whole thing. I feel like it was like a whole week in school. We had Officer Friendly. Do y'all remember Officer Friendly? Or did you have Officer Friendly? Officer Friendly would come to the schools and talk to the classes. Officer Friendly would come to the school and talk to the kids so we would know, or believe anyway, that officers were our friends and not our enemies. Oh, y'all didn't have Officer Friendly? I heard the same thing. Chat says, PTE, I recently heard that the DARE program was essentially a pyramid scheme for police, like an MLM. Lord have mercy. Well, it worked on me. Okay. The propaganda worked on me. Okay. It did. I'm sure my parents loved that because it made me very easy to raise because I believed all this stuff, anti-drug, officer friendly, good citizens, read your books, be a good kid, be a helping hand. Probably makes for raising some pretty decent kids. But yeah, like it all came crashing down. So let's look at another tweet. Like the world has completely inverted on itself, and it's strange. So let's look at another one here. This one says, I think people are nostalgic for the 90s because people were just nicer to each other in general back then, when every single conversation didn't need to turn into a political and ideological battleground. Absolutely. Like, not only were people nicer to each other, but like you could have faith in the promise of like customer service. So, what I mean by that is there was a time, believe it or not, when you could actually write to a company and tell them about a negative experience you had with their product. And some of the companies would actually write you back and say, we are so sorry that you had this negative experience. Here's a coupon or, something like they actually used to care about the products and services that they were offering. You could reach out and actually talk to a human being in customer service. That's one of the greatest losses that I feel sorry for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. All they know for the most part are chatbots. So they don't even know a world where you could call a company and talk to a person and actually get a real solution to your problem from a human being. I do have a prediction though, and my prediction is that it's going to go back to that actually. I think it's going to take a little while. I think it's actually probably going to take about 20 years, 20 years or a little bit less. But in the future, it's actually going to revert back to what it used to be, to where companies will hire people again. They'll get rid of all these chatbots. They'll get rid of all these automated systems because they'll finally accept that people just hate them and that they're not working and that they're not engendering good will toward your company, product, or service. And the people who are holding it in place as it is right now will all be retired and finally out of the decision-making capacity for these companies. And we can finally turn this thing around. I was going to say something a little bit meaner, but I decided to be somewhat nice tonight. I'll just say they'll all be retired and we can finally fix the mess that they made. Let's see here. Chat says you need to do a call-in show. This would be a perfect show to call in on. Y'all want to call in? I think I can drop a link in the chat if y'all are interested. But if no one's going to call, then I won't. But just let me know. Let's see. Oh yeah, chat says the art was longer lasting too. Music especially. It's so amazing because I feel like so many classics emerged out of that time. So many classic movies, classic TV shows, classic music. emerged out of that time, and we didn't even know it was classic at the time. We just expected it to keep getting better. We really did. Like, and I think that's why we didn't recognize it for the greatness that it was at the time, because we just expected more greatness. So when that died too, it was like, oh dang, we were living in like the peak of music, in the pinnacle of music. Chat says, PTE, why are you so optimistic that we'll go back to the era of speaking to a person instead of a chatbot? I think what will happen is, I think it will become like, because everyone is doing the same thing, meaning AI, chatbots, automation, the companies that will stand out are the ones who are going to do the exact opposites. And people, because the human being has not changed. All this technology around us has changed, but the human being has not changed. And I think humans naturally long for, it's not that they long for human connection. What I think they long for is human processing and human intellect and human conversation. So it's like when the AI can't deliver the solution that I'm looking for, that's when it fails. It fails right there because you don't know what I'm talking about because you're a computer. But if I said the same thing to a human being, the human being would get it like that. It wouldn't need to search a large language model to figure out what I'm talking about. The human is the large language model. So I think what will happen is it's almost like a return to the basics is what's going to happen. But also, I think these companies are going to continue to lose so much money behind these technologies that they'll eventually just give it up because they'll realize it's not working. Me too. Chat says, I thought we'd be living like the Jetsons by now. Same. And in some parts of the world, they are kind of living like the Jetsons. They're not afraid to try new things and innovate. Actually, there's another tweet I wanted to show you that speaks on that very thing. Where is it? Was it that one? That one or this one? Or did I not pull it up? Hold on. Blah, 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 blah. Was that not it? Hold on. Well, maybe this is what I was thinking of. This reply, it says, in my early 20s, I thought progress was automatic, like history had a continue button. We celebrated diversity, tech innovation, and open conversations like they were permanent wins. This is the one I was thinking about. Like, oh, what triggered that? The Jetsons thought, yes. I thought we were just going to keep iterating and getting better and better and better for the sake of getting better. I never expected it to collapse into this weird, narcissistic, sick, weird, pedophilic cabal running blackmail operate. Like, what are you doing? Like, y'all are so lame. Please retire. Please retire and exit. So I think they're not going to have a choice. Chat says what you're saying, PTE, makes sense, but these companies are myopic and can't see logic. I think what's going to happen is they're going to be forced to see it. They're not going to have a choice, basically. It's essentially going to collapse on itself. That's my prediction. And what will happen is we'll enter into an era where people can find jobs again because jobs will be given back to human beings. And I know that seems impossible right now, especially with them saying every other day, AI is going to take your job. Yeah, okay. AI can't even help me with simple problems. For example, I had a return to make the other day. I bought something from Amazon. I needed to return it. Well, where I live, there's only a couple options. And Staples is usually the store that I have to go to. Well, their return processing system was down for like a week, and I was running out of time to make my return. So I attempted to reach out to Amazon to explain the situation and say, hey, is there another way that I can return this package? Staples is down. And it just kept looping me. It's like, to return your package, place it in a box and seal the box. Then print out your return label or your QR code and take it to your Staples location. That right there, that's what's going to cause the trip back to humans doing the work. Because also, AI degrades over time. It degrades and it hallucinates, apparently, which they still don't quite know why. But I find that very interesting. But it requires constant maintenance, which is why they keep building these massive data centers. And I think that people are going to eventually revolt against that as well, because it's a huge suck on water and energy, and they're passing the energy costs off to the residents in the neighboring areas instead of absorbing those costs themselves. So anyway, it's going to eat itself, is what I'm trying to say. It's not sustainable because it's not real. It's a computer. It's just a very large, massive computer. No, because I think you're gonna show out. Someone in the chat says, "Can you do a StreamYard live stream?" PTE. I'll join, but until then, this appears to be nothing but an echo chamber. I'll do a separate show just for you, Gordon. I'll do a separate show just for you. Okay, you're gonna derail us too much because you want to talk about all this other stuff. Where have you been? Where have you been on all these other shows where we've addressed those topics? Where you been? I need you to subscribe. I need you to turn on your notifications and join the mailing list so you can be present when we're discussing these things. You should have been on the last live stream. But I am interested to hear your perspective, though, because I am always interested to hear why white men feel like they're the victims. I think that's very, very, very interesting. And I would like to learn more about how you came to that conclusion. Okay. So subscribe, notifications, mailing list. That's your homework. All right. So, yeah, I thought tech innovation was going to, I thought we were going towards the Jetsons. And like I was saying, some countries have actually gotten there already. Here's another tweet I wanted to share with you guys. It says, "The weird arc of being a millennial was growing up with everyone telling you to read and value education and to not be a bigot, only for old people to spend the rest of our lives hating us and keeping us out of power for not being shitty, dumb fuck boomers enough for them." Listen, it's really, really mind blowing, you guys. Like, education was drilled into us. And it makes me wonder, was that just a moment in time? Like, for that brief moment in time, it had to have been, it wasn't the boomers who were in charge. It was whoever was above them. So what was that? The silent generation? The boomers were about to become in charge during this time frame. But during this time frame, actually, yeah, the boomers were approaching middle age. They were approaching like their 40s and 50s, I think, during this time frame. So it was largely their parents and their older brothers and sisters who were in charge. So it makes me wonder, was there a conscious choice, a deliberate decision to say, we've got to try to save at least one of these generations of kids? We've got to. No, I don't think so. Not yet. Chat said, "Do you need to mod some of us up?" Not yet. I don't think so. I think we're okay. Someone said, we have got to save this generation of children. This was like their Hail Mary. This was like their attempt. Let me go back. This was their attempt to have at least one decent outcome. I don't know what they saw before. And I don't know what they anticipated coming down the road, but it's almost like they anticipated this time frame and they were like, we've got to do something to have at least one group instilled with real values. So you know how one political party is always talking about values, family values, family values. What's more family values than being good to each other, taking care of the planet, caring about people who are different from you. Like they used to teach us about people who had different, I don't even think disabilities is the right word to use anymore. I think it's differently abled now. But they would teach us about people who were wheelchair users or people who had artificial limbs, like a prosthesis, a prosthetic leg. They would teach us about these things and show us deliberately that we are all human. We all occupy the same earth. We all deserve respect, love, kindness, fairness. And it made sense. Like as a child, you're just like, well, of course, he can't help that. Like as a child, it made perfect sense. And also as a child, it made perfect sense that that very easily could have been me. And it develops compassion because once you understand this could have been any of us, it makes you more gentle and more kind and more empathetic. And also, you just kind of don't think about it anymore. Like, we actually had a guy in our class, one of my elementary classes, he had a prosthetic leg. And like the first day, it was like a thing. It was like, oh my gosh, wow. But then after that, it's like nobody thought about it anymore. Of course, it's going to take you by surprise, especially if you've never seen anyone with one before. But then once he explained it and just kind of like was like, yeah, this is what it is. Like, okay, well, do you want to go? I don't know, swing on the swings. I don't know, whatever our thing was at the time. You know what I mean? So it was deliberate. It made it made you actually proud to be an American at the time. It really did. I remember that back in the day, if you made the honor roll, the president, which obviously it wasn't the actual president, it was an assistant or somebody, would send you a letter. Do you guys remember that? The president would send you a letter congratulating you on your academic achievement. And as a child, you don't realize the actual president didn't sit down at his desk and write this and send it to you. All you know is that a letter came in the mail with your name on it from the office of the president congratulating you on getting good grades. Can you imagine that happening today? Can you even imagine that? Chat says, I was watching a video on the data centers earlier today. They take about 3 years to build. By the time they go online, the computers will already be obsolete. Chat says, I felt free. The silent generation was my grandparents. Right, mine too. Let's see. Yes, I'll do a live stream with you, but just not here because you're going to derail the conversation and I can tell which direction it's going. But I do want to pick your brain. So give me time, honey. Just give me a little time. Let's get deeper into the spring. I need more sunshine to do something like that. Let's see. Chat says, love the 80s and mid 90s, but once I went to college, that dream started to fade. My dream didn't fade until 9/11. That's the day that everything changed for me. Up until then, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Let's see. Chat says, life would have worked if America hadn't been intentionally demolished. And see, I'm wondering, should I go there in this particular stream or should I make that a separate stream? Because it really does need to be discussed because it feels intentional. Because how do you go from this, DARE programs, Hands Across America, Red Ribbon Week, The More You Know, Reading Rainbow. Dang, I should have put Reading Rainbow on here. I forgot. Earth Day, Book It, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, the book fair. Do they still do book fairs? The Care Bears, Family Matters, Captain Planet. How do you go from Heal the World? We Are the World. How do you go from this to where we are today? It's night and day. I feel like if I had grown up in the world back then as it is today, I would have been terrified. Terrified. It's not a surprise to me to hear that a lot of Gen Z are not moving out of their parents' houses. I could see why. Number one, because it's so expensive, but cost aside, I would be terrified. I think the only reason I'm not terrified is because I grew up with this. This is what I grew up with. Hope and optimism and joy and fun. And the food was still good, also. That's a separate conversation, but the food was actually really good. Oh, they still have book fairs? Oh my gosh, how exciting. I want to go to a book fair. So let me see what other tweets. Um, okay, this one made me laugh, but I think it's perfectly illustrative of what happened here. So the tweet says, them then, quote, I lived off odd jobs and friends for 5 years while I searched for meaning. Them now. Why do you have a 1 month gap in your resume? And so the picture is it's of a bunch of hippies, right? So these are the hippies 1976. So that makes these people, I would estimate, like in their 20s, roughly in their 20s. And back then, these same people, if they applied for a job and someone was like, so what have you been up to, before you got here? They're like, oh, I just lived off odd jobs here and there. And, I hitchhiked across the country for about 5 years. And I went on a sabbatical while I searched for meaning. And it's like, you're hired. Now, fast forward 40 years, these people are your senior managers, your supervisors, your bosses, your mid-level managers, your middling managers, sitting across from you going, so why do you have a 1 month gap in your resume? Same people. It's the same people. That's another big point of the show. It's the same people. The same people who pushed this on us, who supported this, who were there. They were there probably roughly around their 30s or 40s at this time, maybe, give or take, plus or minus. They were there during this time frame. Those same people now are asking you, why do you have a 1 month gap in your resume? And this is what's very, very interesting. And actually there's another tweet, and it's not so it's going to appear that I'm focusing on white people only, but I'm really not. I'm focusing on this generation, but these tweets are highlighting the race, and it just is what it is. But here's another one. It says, white guys will smoke pot their whole life, listen to rock and roll and hip hop, do mind altering drugs, marry a dark skinned foreigner, have mixed race kids, and still end up right wing reactionary boot licking clowns cheering for fascists. Shit is truly mind blowing to me. And it's the spirit. It's the same thing. It's these two tweets to me are basically saying the same thing. And we're not saying that you have to do drugs your whole life and listen to rap and be cool. And that's not what we're saying. People change, people grow. What we're saying is, how do you go from free love to fascist? How does that happen? That's all we're asking. How does it go from I love everyone is accepted here, my heart is open and welcoming towards you, to fascist? Like, how did it make that transition? That's very strange, and it's very concerning also, because it's almost like a switch got flipped in the brain. And again, I'm not intending to focus on white people or conservatives necessarily. However, going back to kind of like the start of the show, like a lot of the conservative people that I know today were kids with me during the same time frame, singing Michael Jackson, doing talent shows, dancing to Michael Jackson. Like some of the white kids knew more rap songs than I did. And again, I'm not saying that you have to maintain a musical taste your whole life to be considered valid or credible. That's not what I'm saying. We're just asking, what happened? What happened? Chat says people were way more civil then, more human. There wasn't this creepy undercurrent of hostility and manipulation. Exactly. Exactly. Like, I know I can't be the only one who thinks about it because I know I'm not the only Black person who grew up in a very diverse environment and a very diverse group of friends who now like scrolls Facebook or Instagram or whatever, just stunned at what they see. Cause it's kind of like, God, was I always in danger with you? Was I always in danger and I just didn't know it? Or was there a point in time when I was not in danger with you and then something changed and now I'm in danger? Do you see what I'm saying? Chat says, right, they had no college debt and could get jobs that didn't match their degrees or experience. It's the go through an open door and close it behind you before others can mindset. Absolutely. And it's so disappointing. And actually, we when the whole global illness was going on, we kind of had this conversation a little bit. Some of you were there for it. I've taken most of those videos down. But what we were discussing at the time is how all these rock stars had suddenly turned into passive bootlickers, basically. It was very surprising and very shocking to see, and they continue to surprise us, do they not? People back in the day who were like rebels and, you know, F the system, make war against the system, blah, 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 you know, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, to present this image of rebellion and this image of wokeness, because that's what it was, to present this image of, I see the system and I want to help dismantle the system, to not only upholding the system, but violently upholding that system. Like, what happened? Chat says everyone has become reactionary in reaction to extremism from the other side because both lunatic fringes gained a platform through the internet. Yeah, see, to me, that's just not sufficient. And the reason that's not sufficient is because I've managed to hold on to my mind through it all, through everything that we've been through and that we've gone through over a lifetime. I've managed to hold on to my mind. How did approximately one half lose theirs? So to me, that means it was never really firmly rooted to begin with, perhaps, which is a whole separate conversation. But it's troubling because, again, if the human mind can be taken like that, that means it can be influenced to do almost anything, just about. Chat says being a hippie and a drug user isn't a viable form of life. Most of that stuff was pushed by the CIA. So I don't disagree, because people obviously grow up and they start families and they can't be laid up doing drugs all day long. They have to actually start contributing. However, that should not suddenly make you lose all your empathy for your fellow man. I could understand you can't go to your friend's house and do mushrooms and smoke weed all day anymore because you're 40, but how did that suddenly make you lose all your empathy for your fellow man? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how did that disappear? That's a good question. Chat says, do you think trauma is a factor here? That is a very good question. And I actually don't know, because I guess the question for me would be, what was the trauma? Chat says there are a few that drank the Kool-Aid. The rebels were conditioned to believe their anarchist ideals wouldn't be sustainable. So they neutered them. Oh, they got neutered. Oh, man. Mm, mm. Oh, they got neutered. That's so sad. That's sad. Now that is sad. They got neutered. And then life became what it is today. So we went from here. So The 70s hippie era had kind of passed over at this point. We're deep in the 80s at this point, but it was still a remnant and like a leftover from the 70s. But then they got neutered, and now we have the world that we have today. Now we have, hold on, wait a minute. Let me find one. Hold on. Now we have this. This is what we got. Okay. So we went from this, they got neutered, and now we got this. So I just I have another theory too. I have another theory. And I think what happened was during this time frame, while no one was necessarily rich, no one was necessarily poor or impoverished, right? Like I would estimate to say a lot of our basic needs were met during this time frame, right? But I think what happened was as these folks started getting money and started getting promotions and started being able to buy the houses and then being able to buy a second house in a nicer neighborhood. And now you're an executive director of global shipping and regional supplies for the Northeast Division of China. Like, you're getting all these fancy titles. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I like this and I want to keep it going until I retire. So it's almost like they got bought out also. So if they weren't neutered, they were bought. And so then it became easier for them to become hateful towards the younger generation because the younger generation was a threat to the new lifestyle that they may not have thought was accessible to them before. Chat says, an abundance to a scarcity mindset. Hmm. So back here in this picture here, this is when they had the abundance mindset. But then as they started to matriculate up the ladder because they had to get jobs eventually, it transitioned to a scarcity mindset. Is that what you're saying? Do I understand that correctly? So it's actually really sad to see the level of selling out and to see the level of, again, because it's such a good point from the earlier comment, which is being a hippie drug user is not a sustainable lifestyle. Fair point. However, as you let go of those things, it should not also dissolve your consideration for your fellow man. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been bothered at the concept of food stamps and food assistance ever. You want to know why? Because to me, it's better that they eat than not eat. Because have you seen how you act when you're hungry? So imagine if people are hungry, sustained over time, it's going to make them turn into animals. So I would rather them eat and figure out how we're going to fix this the next day than be starving and maybe rob me because they're hungry. There's that. But here's the other reason it's never bothered me, because living in this society teaches you how easy it is to become somebody who needs food stamps. It's way too easy. It's way too easy. If I didn't care about like privacy, I would show y'all my Gmail account and I would show y'all my folder of all the jobs that I've applied to and been rejected from. It's in the hundreds. And I'm not aiming for executive vice president roles. I'm aiming for roles that are right in my career band and right in my experience level. And the number of times I put in an application rejection, put in an application rejection, put in an application rejection, put in a, you know what thought I was having the other day? The thought I had the other day was, I wonder who I would be if I had actually had the opportunity to choose my life versus having it designed for me by other people. And here's what I mean by that. If I had had the opportunity to, hey, when I apply to that job that looks like it's a good fit for me and actually get it, and then work on that job and maybe it works out long term. But if not, if I find that I'm needing to change, to be able to apply to a different role and actually get it. Like, it would have been amazing to see who I could have been if I didn't basically just have to take what I could get. And a lot of us are in that boat. We don't take the jobs that we want necessarily. We take the jobs that are being offered and the ones that we can get, because we don't want to end up hungry and in need of assistance. But here's my whole point: because of the way the system is currently set up, it's far too easy to end up being someone who needs assistance. It's way too easy to end up like that. And it's largely because these jobs are dependent on someone telling you yes, who's sitting across from you asking you, why do you have a 1 month gap in your resume? Girl, please stop playing with me. Are you hiring or not? I am conscious, I am capable, willing, and able to show up and do the job for you. Please, let's stop playing these games. You all play too many games in this society. And as a result, people often end up on the street or hungry or unable to pay their bills because you got people sitting across from them talking about, why do you have a 1 month gap in your resume? Girl, because for 1 month I couldn't find a job. Like, are you serious? Because you all are sending out more rejections than offer letters. What are we talking about here? So that's why it's never bothered me, because to me, that's what a safety net is supposed to be. A safety net is supposed to be, hey, we hope that you will be a contributing citizen, that you'll go out and get a job and do what you're supposed to do. But in the event that those things fail or fall through, you're not going to starve to death. You're not going to end up homeless because too many people are sending you rejection letters. Also, on that thread, since we're on that thread, I have seen the tweet several times come through talking about there's companies out here posting ghost jobs, meaning they're just posting the job to see what kind of interest is out there, what type of talent is out there, what the market is trying to set for that price range, for that salary. And then they pulled the job posting with no intentions of ever filling it. It was just like a research thing. But candidates are applying to the role believing that it's real, but it's not. It's a ghost job. So my solution to that as president would be to fine these companies that get caught doing that. If you're posting fake job postings when people are out here looking for employment, willing to work, able to work, and you're out here playing with people's time when they're spending the time to apply to these jobs, we're going to fine you for that. We're also going to fine you for holding jobs open for 6 months, 8 months, and you've had 2,000 applicants. And out of those 2,000 applicants, nobody was good enough to work for you. So you played with 2,000 people's time. We're going to fine you for that. You're going to get fined. That would be my solution. Because it's literally life and death. You're playing with life and death as it relates to employment. It's not a game. It's not a game. So you need to be fined for that. And then the money collected from those fines would go into the unemployment bucket, whatever it's called for each state. Anyway, oh, absolutely. Chat says there's a special place in hell for those who post ghost jobs. Absolutely. Okay. These people are so drunk and high on their own supply of power and control. There was some girl on Twitter the other day talking about, why are so many people using AI to generate cover letters? And then people wrote her back and said, because y'all are using AI to read them. Are we really playing these games with each other? It's not fun. It was never fun, but it's really not fun anymore. Because Kristen, you're going to run that cover letter through an AI software and it's going to summarize it for you because you're too lazy to read. But you're judging the candidate who just had it AI generated because they know you're going to run it through AI. It's insane. Somebody said, so AI generates the job post, and then the candidates generate AI generated resumes. Then AI reads the AI generated resume. And basically, it doesn't reach a human until like several steps down the way. But basically, the computers are talking to each other at this point. The computers are hiring and firing each other at this point. Um, so yeah. So let me see what else, what other points did I want to make? I think that kind of going back to what I said earlier, I think the millennials are in a very unique position because I think we are the ones that they really, really tried to save. I really think that they wanted us to be different. They wanted something better for us because you don't, and this is not everything. This is just all I could fit on this thumbnail. But you don't do all of this if you didn't have some sort of plan in mind. And for once, I actually don't think it was an evil plan. For once, I actually think somebody was trying to save the children. Somebody was trying to protect the children and really really made that push to make that happen. So it's just been really really disheartening to watch the energy from this era fall apart. But if history teaches us anything, things like this tend to come back again. So I think once this current time frame finally falls, and I do believe we're in the process of watching it fall in real time, once this time frame finally collapses, I think we might see a resurgence and a reemergence of this energy right here. And the people who would call it woke and blah 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 blah, those voices will be snuffed out basically, because I think the whole world will have been sick of what we've all collectively experienced during this time frame, and it'll be really really embarrassing. And if we live to old age and the generations keep progressing, the kids in the future are going to look back and go, what was wrong with you guys? From the year 2000 to 2026, what in the world happened to y'all? How did y'all go from this to everything that that is documented from that time frame? What happened? And that is the big question. So that is the question that I'm going to leave you guys with this evening is what happened to cause this major shift? And also, for those of you who are in that millennial bracket, you 80s babies, do you remember this time frame? And do you ever think back on it and think something significant shifted because we weren't raised this way? And we weren't like Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. Like as a little girl, I felt it was my responsibility to prevent forest fires, even though I was nowhere near a forest. It was just in my heart and mind to make sure that I didn't contribute to a forest fire. I was clipping the rings on soda can plastic, the little packing rings that keep the cans together. When we would take them off, my mom would hand it to me and I would clip through each and every single one to make sure it didn't get tangled up on the fish in the river. Like these are the type of children that they raised. So, what happened? Do you remember this time frame? And what did I leave out from the discussion in terms of programs, culture, media that was deliberately designed to make us better people? Because I know there was more. This is just all that I could remember. Okay. So, with that, I am going to close the show. Oh, good question. Chat says, doesn't that bring us back to the uncanny valley discussion? It kind of does. Chat says, I still clip the soda can rings. You see, it has a lasting impact. I remember, sorry, I'll close the show after this. In my previous house where I was living before this one, when I moved in, we had trash and recycling that would come around. But then I guess the city decided they didn't want to do or pay for recycling anymore. So they literally got rid of it. And I had to start throwing my cans away. And I can't tell you how bad felt about that. And my plastic. I'm like, this is not supposed to get thrown away. We're supposed to recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, just an innocent baby, just a baby. So now I'm looking around at this hellscape going, did we take a wrong turn somewhere? Did we get hit with a solar flare that knocked us out of our orbit or something? And like they can't feel the warmth of the sun or something. And that's why everyone went nuts. Like, what happened? What happened? We really got to figure that out. But until then, I hope you all have enjoyed this walk down memory lane. I hope it gave you something to think about. And I'm very curious to see your thoughts once the show wraps up. And y'all said y'all like that intro music, so maybe I'll use it again. I was only going to use it for this show, but maybe I'll use it on a regular basis since you guys liked it. Okay? So with that, you all have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will get together and talk again very soon, okay? Bye.